So now let's talk about motion lines versus force lines. All lines in the pathway, and you can see this glass right here, right? And so when we look at that glass right there, all lines inside here are considered lines of motion. Some are filled with force, not all of them. So you can see our force line right here, for instance. And then there's something called a force arrow. Now, force arrow has a delivery point where you stop, right? And you're going to transfer that force from the motion, right, to now residual movement. Okay, so you've got force lines. This is A3 right here that's blue that he's pushing on into the force line there. And then A4, so A3 is a force line and A4 has a force arrow, because at the end of it, you're going to, right, now have a delivery point, and then you're going to take a residual movement. You can see the delivery points here are these circles. Okay, let's talk about, this is a force color key. So let's talk about the keys to force, which are the colors, right? And the controls are inside what we call the weapons, right? Meaning the thoughts are inside the force or the color. So it's really important that you, as you understand this, your thoughts and your feelings are what cause this to happen. So if you don't know what color it's supposed to be, for instance, let's say this is yellow, right? Yellow, it accelerates and then stops. That's called momentum. We're going to get that. You can see that third color on there is momentum, yellow. And so we're going to do this. Now, if you don't know that that's supposed to be yellow, you might just reach your arm out like this because you don't know it. Whereas the other swimmer that knows it will put force into that line. So what you know and how you feel about that, how well connected you are emotionally, you can generate emotional energy in there in addition to just physical energy, which overrides it. It's much, much greater. So the idea through here is to understand that these colors really need to be understood by swimmers for them to actually implement them to the degree that they can really get a lot out of them. So the understanding makes a big difference. So let's start off with the first one up on the left here, black. Now that's structure or the pathway, which we're just looking. So if we go back here, you can see the structure, the pathway on the swimmer. So right, that's that glass, right? And these are the black lines of structure. It's also called blueprinting. So getting force moving in the correct direction, that's what this is doing. It's putting you in this tube basically where you want to deliver that pathway. Okay, there's more black, okay, more detailed structure in the what we call the 300 level. So when you know even more than there is in the 200 level or 100 level, there's more structure in it. So the deeper you go in our levels, right, the more structure lays out to help you understand parts. And what we do is we break down a piece smaller and smaller so you can understand what you need to do in each one of those pieces. Okay, and dimension 1 at fluid mechanics is called structures. That creates the black lines of structure. Okay, let's move to the green. Green is called setup or preparation for force. So you're getting ready. For instance, if you're coming up here, and A stands for arms, H for head, T for torso, and L for legs. A0, A1, A2, A3, and A4. A0 is green. It's getting ready. It's not force itself. It's setting up. It's preparing for force. Whereas A1 in freestyle might be considered, right? We call that momentum. It's yellow. And that's a parallel force, which means it's pulling you with it. So the force is going this way and you're connecting to that force and moving with it in the same direction, right? So that we say parallel force drags you with it to retain the force, right? So you go again in the same direction as the force is going, and the movement follows the motion. Blue is an opposing force. That's propulsion. So these both yellow and blue are called primary forces. Okay, These are primary forces. So yellow is taking you with it, and blue is, right, pushing in the opposite direction, the opposing way. So that's called propulsion. It's a pushing or driving force. Okay. And again, the motion is going in an opposite direction than the movement. So if I want to go this way, I push that way. Whereas in momentum, if I want to go this way, right, I drive something in that direction, try to connect with it, kind of ride it. Okay. Now let's talk about power. Pink is what we call power. It's a secondary force. And we call it leverage, right? And so we're using that leverage, and also known as power. It's a force that assists another force. It isn't yellow, but it makes yellow more yellow. It isn't blue, but it makes blue more blue. It might be pink, and it's helping another pink thing. So it's helping other things. Okay, so it assists another force, right? The torso is the generator of power in a lot of cases. Also, the upper leg can be a generator of power. So these turn pink a lot of times to help the propellers and things like that do their jobs better. And we say, just as an example, it multiplies whatever you're doing by 4. So in other words, it's really like if you got a value here of 1, and you put that on top of it with more, right, with more push from there, it can take that 1 and make it worth the value of 4. So it's a lot bigger, a lot stronger, not just a little stronger. Okay, now purple is tensity. Tensity is your muscular contraction. Purple is the generator of force. It's inside all the other colors. So to make yellow, you need purple, the contraction of that muscle to cause that. And we have both static, and we also have active purple. So static means it's holding it so it doesn't move. So nobody could move it. Active is you trying to move something, right? And you causing, and that would be active purple. Okay. And so active purple, when we get into what's called PGTR later in this video, active purple is G, the generator, right? So it's G, generate force. In PGTR, the G is generate, right? In static purple, in that PGTR that we watch, right? That's holds the tensity. It's not moving. So the T, that's the T in PGTR, which is transfer. We'll talk about that more in just a little bit. Okay, residual movement is called R. So it's PGTR, prepare, generate, transfer, and retain, right? Or that residual movement. Okay, so R is the red, that is your residual movement. We talked about residual movement right here. See, that's the residual movement where you're basically taking a ride from the working movement. Now, gray is called waste, right? That's a lack of force or purpose. So if I just move my arm kind of like this way and there's no real reason, it's just a motion line, but it doesn't have a purpose to it, that's called gray. Gray's not always bad. I mean, we need gray time in our life. For instance, you know, how much, my name's John, right? So how much John time do I need in my life? And sometimes some of that John time will just be time to kind of relax and not do much, not have a lot, right? Because I'm working quite often and I'm working intensely. Once in a while you need, and when I was younger, I needed a little more gray time than when I got older, right? And have a little bit less gray time. I don't need as much because I just simply required more when I was younger than I do now that I'm older. Okay, so that would be gray. So a lot of times, but if you are supposed to be connected and engaged and you're using gray time during that time, you could lose the opportunity to generate force during the time because you weren't aware of what you were supposed to be doing, or didn't do it for some reason.